Hi there, my name is Caitlin Bandy and this is my channel BandysBooks, and today we are here to do another month of Book of the Month predictions. I'm very excited. This has been so much fun for me, basically every month trying to guess what books Book of the Month is gonna pick. I have been doing decent so far. My first month I managed to predict 3 picks, and last month I managed to predict 2 picks. This month is going to be a tricky month because there are so many amazing books coming out in April. Let me tell you, when I was doing my research on this subject, there was like 100 books that could have potentially been picks. There's so much good stuff in April. I don't know how I'm possibly gonna select what I want to read, what should be on Book of the Month. Just in general, it's like a really, really good publishing month. So I've narrowed it down to about 20 books across several different categories. As always, we're gonna break this down by genre and we'll talk about a couple picks for each genre and go from there. So today we're gonna start with thrillers and mystery. My first selection for the thriller category is Homecoming by Kate Morton. This is going to release on April 13th. It currently has a 4.28 on Goodreads and about 361 reviews so far. We have a Christmas Eve 1959 timeline when a local delivery man makes a shocking discovery and it embroils the small town of Tambalia, Australia in a murder scandal. 60 years later, we have a character named Nora who returns home to take care of her grandmother after she has a kind of a scary fall. And while she's there, she finds some things in her grandmother's attic in her home that reopen the mystery of this case. This sounds like it's going to be a really good book. I know that Book of the Month loves those dual timeline sort of mysteries. I think this is going to be nice and twisty. It's not going to be like your typical suspense thriller, but I think it's going to really like explore this whole murder. I love that it's set in Australia. I think that that's maybe a perspective that's a little different than the usual for Book of the Month. And aesthetically, this book is really pretty as well. I think this would fit right in with the other aesthetics of Book of the Month. Next up, we have Mastering the Art of French Murder, and this is by Colleen Cambridge. It's dropping on the 25th of April, and it's doing pretty well on Goodreads so far. It's got about a 4.28 with about 206 ratings. This is a cozy mystery, and I know cozy mysteries are not like the primary genre that Book of the Month features, but they did a while back feature the whole Arsenic and Adobo series, and so maybe they're interested in starting another cozy mystery series, and this one sounds like a lot of fun. This book was set in post-World War II era Paris, and we have a character named Tabitha who has recently moved from Detroit to Paris to be with her grandfather and her uncle, and she ends up as a neighbor to Julia Child, and this is the historical figure Julia Child, and they become good friends. And one night they are at a party hosted by Julia Child's sister or sister-in-law, I can't remember which, and there is a murder that happens. And somehow both Julia and Tabitha are implicated in that murder and go down the route of trying to investigate what actually happened. I am so obsessed with this. Cozy mysteries are not really my primary genre either, but I'm a chef for a living, I love food, and throw in my hero Julia Child and I am all about this book. So maybe this is wishful thinking, but I would love to see this in the Book of the Month box. After that, we have Before We Were Innocent by Ella Berman. This is dropping on the 4th of April. So far, it's sitting on Goodreads with a 4.28 and about 46 reviews. So this book starts about 10 years ago when Bess and Joni are in the Greek islands and their friend Evangeline has been murdered. They're both implicated in that murder, but are eventually cleared. However, the media never really lets go of this obsession with them as murderers, and that reputation kind of follows them later in life. Now it's 10 years later, and Joni has been implicated in a similar crime in Los Angeles. She calls Bess and reaches out to her for support, asks her to come be with her during this scandal. And Bess ultimately has to make some choices regarding her friendship, regarding the situation, and all the things that implies. This looks like it's gonna be amazing. I have an ARC copy of it, and I am really looking forward to reading it. And my final pick for the thriller category is actually a historical thriller, and it's called Small Mercies. It's dropping on the 25th of April, and it's got about a 4.31 rating on Goodreads with about 87 reviews so far. This book is set in 1974 during the summer. It's in the southie end of Boston, which is like a predominantly Irish neighborhood. And a young girl goes missing one night, just kind of out of nowhere. And in that same night, a young Black man dies after being hit by a subway train. There is something suspicious about his death. It seems to look like it might be murder. This whole book is going to be exploring the topic of the desegregation of public schools in the Boston area and the explosion of violence that followed that announcement. The reason that I think Book of the Month might pick this one up is because it is a mix of historical, thriller, suspense. It is interesting about some relevant themes, and a piece of history that I think more people should know about. So I'm hoping that this might be one that makes it into the box. Next, we're gonna get into the horror genre, and I have two really great selections this month. First up is Sisters of the Lost Nation by Nick Medina. That's dropping on the 18th of April, and boy does this book sound amazing. It currently has a rating of 4.10 and about 52 reviews so far. This book follows a character named Anna Horn, who's always used to looking over her shoulder, kind of being bullied, being on the outskirts of society. When girls on the reservation start going missing, Anna is convinced that the secret lies in the tribal past, like old mythological tale. The reason that I think that this book might be chosen for Book of the Month is because they've been really into horror lately. First of all, I feel like they've had some excellent horror picks over like the last year. And so this, I think, could be potentially another awesome pick in their string of really good horror picks. Second of all, I think that Book of the Month does make an effort at diverse representation, and this book is written by an Indigenous author and set on a reservation. Kind of is giving me similar vibes to like White Horse, and that was a pretty big success. It was a really good book, and I think that this could be kind of in a similar vein. I'm here for it either way. Like if it's in the box or not, I'm probably gonna end up with a copy of this because it sounds like something that is right up my alley. After that, I have The Haunting of Alejandra by V. Castro. This is dropping on the 18th of April. It currently has a 3.71 rating and about 305 reviews so far on Goodreads. So we have a main character named Alejandra who is no longer sure of who she is. She's being haunted by visions of La Llorona, which is a crying woman that comes from Mexican folklore. And when Alejandra reaches out to a psychologist to help her dig into what's going on with her mental health, they start exploring generational trauma, and they find that La Llorona has been haunting the women of her family for many generations. So I think that this would be an excellent choice for Book of the Month for a whole multitude of reasons. First of all, like I said in the previous book, there's been a string of excellent horror books so far in Book of the Month. I think this continues with that. They seem to really enjoy this genre when they have strong picks. This book also is anchored in Mexican folklore, which they've proven that they like to do. We've seen Mexican Gothic, we've seen the Hacienda. This kind of fits again within that theme. And aesthetically, this book is so in line with Book of the Month. It's a really, really beautiful cover. So I think that a Book of the Month edition of this would look really, really nice for them. I am very hopeful that this one will pop up. It sounds like such a promising read. Next up, we have the historical fiction genre, and this is one of my favorite genres. There's so many books coming out in the historical fiction realm this month. I tried to limit it to just 2 because otherwise I could have just done a whole video of historical fiction predictions. So these are the 2 that are like the ones that I think I'm most interested in, and it could be, again, wishful thinking, but it would be nice to see them pop up in Book of the Month. The first book that we have in the historical fiction genre is Only the Beautiful by Susan Meisner. It's coming out on the 18th of April. It currently sits with a 4.49 and about 63 ratings so far on Goodreads. This book starts in California in like 1938, 1939, and we have a young girl named Roseanne. Her parents have died and left her on a vineyard, and the owners of the vineyard have kind of watched after her, cared for her, allowed her to stay there. When she has a unplanned pregnancy, she is sent away, and she initially thinks that she's just going to a home for unwed mothers, and she finds out that there's a shocking secret, and where she's going is really not at all where she expected. And then flash forward to Austria, 1944. We have the sister of the vineyard owner who has seen the rise of Nazis across Europe and is ready to return home. Upon returning, she finds out that Roseanne has gone missing and starts exploring what actually happened to this girl. The reason that I think that this book could be a Book of the Month selection is it has that dual timeline thing, again, that I think Book of the Month likes. It is World War II era historical fiction, which they also seem to like. It is something that has kind of a mystery element because we're trying to figure out what happened to Roseanne and piece everything together. I think this could be a really, really good pick, and the ratings look really good on it so far. Next up, we have The Golden Doves by Martha Hall Kelly. This is dropping on the 18th of April. So far, it has a 4.45 rating and about 231 reviews. This book follows 2 women who were spies during World War II fighting against the Nazis. They're both captured and sent to a concentration camp along with their family members. So one woman's mother is tortured and experimented on by an infamous Nazi doctor, and the other woman's son goes missing during this period of time, and she never finds out what happens. After they escape the concentration camp, they are tasked with the job of hunting down the doctor that potentially tortured this woman's mom. And this journey is going to lead them all the way to French Guiana with lots of questions and I expect this is going to be a really emotional, dark read. It sounds amazing. First of all, I love a book that features two badass women, women that have overcome extreme obstacles, and I love the idea of, I don't want to call it a revenge story because I don't know that it's necessarily like this violent, Hollywood version of revenge, but we have two women that are potentially able to go get the bad guy that really directly and horrifically harmed their family members. I'm here for it. I think this is a really strong chance for a pick. I've been hearing so many good things about this book too. So next up we have the romance category, the category that I am admittedly the least informed on, and I'm a bit excited because this month in April, there are so many romance books publishing, and several of them are by authors that even I'm aware of. First up, we have Happy Place by Emily Henry. That's coming out on the 25th of April. It currently has a 4.49 rating and about 1,840 reviews on Goodreads, so it's already receiving a lot of really positive feedback. This book is about a couple who have already broken up but have decided to make a pact to pretend like they're still together because they have an annual friends vacation that they always go on and they don't want to ruin it for everybody else. So they're just gonna get through this vacation pretending like they're still in love. The reason that I think that this book is likely to be picked is because Emily Henry has been featured by Book of the Month many times over. She would be a repeat author. She always does really well when she's selected as one of their selections. After that, we have Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. That's publishing on the 11th of April. That currently sits with a 4.75 and about 2,232 reviews at this time. So definitely the highest rated book on this list and also the most ratings so far. This follows Dr. Brianna Ortiz, and her life is kind of flatlining. She's going through a messy divorce. Her brother is on the organ donation list for a kidney, but is not having any success, and his time is soon to be running out. And now she's certain that the promotion she should be receiving is going to be going to a new pain in the ass male doctor that has arrived in her office. Then that doctor does something unexpected. Dr. Jacobs sends her a letter and it changes everything. So this is probably a strong pick for Book of the Month because, again, Abby Jimenez is super popular. Book of the Month has featured her books before. I think they featured Part of Your World, if I remember correctly. I know that that was really popular. As you can see, it's already receiving super high ratings. She'd be a repeat author. It fits the romance aesthetic that they typically go for. I think both the Emily Henry and the Abby Jimenez picks make sense. I don't think they'll pick both, but definitely one or the other. I would be pretty shocked if one of them didn't end up on there somewhere. And then my third selection in the romance category is Five First Chances by Sarah Jost. This is coming out on the 18th. It currently has a 3.76 rating on Goodreads and about 44 reviews so far. So this one is definitely a little bit of a lesser known, quieter release than the other two. We have this character named Lou who feels like she's on the wrong path and she's consumed by the what ifs about the choices that she's made in life thus far. Then she's given a chance to go back and rewrite her history. And every change that she makes, she notices something different happening. She finds herself in a time loop, wondering if she can actually fix the problems. This sounds like a cute, interesting book. I don't know anything about this author. I don't know anything about their writing style, but the time loop thing, the kind of exploration of life choices, and the reflection and introspectiveness of it make me think that it would be a good Book of the Month choice. Next up is the fantasy and science fiction genre, and I'm really excited about both of my picks in this category. So the first one we have is described as a speculative science fiction thriller, and I'm here for it. It sounds so cool, guys. And that's Ascension by Nicholas Binge. It comes out on the 25th of April. So far, it has a 4.36 rating and about 97 reviews on Goodreads. So this book takes place when an enormous snow-covered mountain just pops up out of nowhere in the Pacific Ocean. It's a huge mystery. Nobody knows anything about this mountain, how tall it is, why it's there, what caused it, anything of the sort. So we have a scientist named Harold, and he is brought in to uncover this mystery. And he puts together a team, and they trek out to this mountain and start climbing it. And as they start climbing it, things get weird. So as the crew climbs up the mountain, their memories of their regular life start to fade, paranoia starts to set in, and there are all these slithering ancient creatures that are stalking them as they make their way up to the top. This sounds so cool. I am here for it. I definitely will be reading this whether it shows up in a book box or not. The reason that I think that this would be a good Book of the Month pick is because it has that kind of thriller horror element to it. In some ways, it really reminds me of a previous book of the month pick, The Anomaly, which was set in the Grand Canyon and featured this like mysterious cave and kind of some science fiction elements. This has very, very similar vibes to that for me. And so I think this kind of already fits in line with some of the stuff Book of the Month has done in the past. After that, we have Chain Gang All-Stars by Nina Kwame Adjei-Brenyah. This book is actually releasing at the beginning of May. So if this is picked, it would be an early release. This book is currently sitting at a 4.39 with about 152 reviews. This is kind of a sci-fi dystopia, and it is set inside of a prison. We have two women who are basically gladiators. They are trained to fight and duel, and if you win enough fights, essentially you might be able to win back your freedom. The reason that I think that this might be a pick is because this seems like the type of book that Book of the Month loves. It's quirky, it's got that dystopia vibe, there's a sci-fi element, it's gonna talk about some relevant issues. I think it's gonna delve into the prison industrial complex, racism, things like that. And aesthetically, this book also really matches what Book of the Month likes. It's got a lot of bright colors, a really quirky design on it. I think this would be a smart choice. And now we're gonna get into contemporary fiction. Our first pick is Adelaide by Genevieve Wheeler. It drops on the 18th of April. It currently sits at 4.17 and it has just over 300 reviews so far. We have a character named Adelaide. She meets a guy named Rory and falls for him instantly, but Rory is really not a very good boyfriend. He doesn't really respond to texts. He never wants to make advanced plans. He's basically treating her like she's on the back burner. And then something tragic happens to Rory, and Adelaide basically gives up everything to care for him. And she starts to lose herself in the process. I looked through a few reviews of this book, and everybody was saying that this is like a super emotional, deep, complex sort of a book. It is technically romance because it deals with a relationship, but I feel like this is romance in the same way as You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty is romance. It's like more of a deep exploration of grief, trauma, human feelings and emotions, things like that. All of that sounds amazing and kind of fits in with some of the books that Book of the Month has picked in the past. Thinking of like Someday Maybe. This is also a debut release, and Book of the Month does like to feature debut authors, so I think that this might be a smart pick for them. After that, we have Advika and the Hollywood Wives by Kirthana Ramisetti. This is dropping on the 11th of April. This has about a 3.75 rating so far and only about 24 reviews, so this has not received a ton of feedback yet. However, Kirthana Ramisetti wrote Dava Shastri's Last Day. That was a fabulous book. It got a lot of attention in the literary world, and I think that this one could potentially be just as good. This is about a 26-year-old girl named Advika who is a failed screenwriter. She's working as a bartender at A-list Hollywood parties when she meets a famed director. Even though he's like 40-some years older than her, he courts her, she falls for him, and they end up married. And then his first wife dies, and his first wife leaves like $1 million and a will with a bunch of stipulations in regards to Advika. And Advika has to decide whether she wants to leave the director and take the money and the information that was left by his wife, or remain married. And this sounds super interesting. I think this is going to be interesting because it's going to explore like age and relationships and Hollywood and some of the things that happen in Hollywood that people kind of turn a blind eye to. I feel like this is giving me almost Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo vibes. Not exactly because it's not the same topic, but like that Hollywood glitz and glamour element of it. I think that this would be a very smart pick for a Book of the Month. And now we're going to go into literary fiction. I don't always have a literary fiction pick, but this month there was a lot of really good choices, so I did make a couple selections in this genre. We have Pomegranate by Helen Lane Lee. It drops on the 11th of April, and this book sounds amazing to me. It currently has a 3.56 times about 54 ratings. I know that's a little bit of a lower rating, but I do notice that literary fiction in particular tends to have kind of hit and miss reviews because it's so subjective. This follows a character named Renita Atwater. She's out of prison for the first time after 4 years. She's also 3 years sober, and she's fighting to regain custody of her children. This is not a linear path though, and this book ultimately explores the winding paths that queer Black women have to take to get to wellness. The reason that I think that this would be a good book for Book of the Month is because it is exploring a lot of issues that are very relevant to modern life. We have a character who has just gotten out of prison, is trying to reintegrate in society. She's dealt with addiction, she's dealt with the loss of parental rights, and she's basically starting over. She's got her second chance in life and she's trying to make the most of it. I think that this makes a lot of sense for a Book of the Month pick. After that, we have Natural Beauty by Ling Ling Wang. This is dropping on the 4th of April, and it currently has a 413 on Goodreads and about 56 reviews so far. This book sounds amazing to me. Like, the concept of it is so much fun, and I really hope it's selected. This is about a woman who is a professional musician, and she ends up giving up her musical career to go work for a natural beauty company called Holistic. While she's working for Holistic, she's getting to sample all these different products, beauty creams, things that are supposed to thin her down, make her hair thicker, all these different things. And she's loving it at first, but beneath all the glitz and the glamour, there's something much, much darker. This book sounds amazing to me. It has LGBTQIA themes. It's going to be exploring the dark underworld of cosmetics. I think it's going to have that like quiet dystopian element to it. I am here for this. I think that this would be a really good pick by Book of the Month. And then my final pick in the lip thick category is The Skin and Its Girl by Sarah Cipher. This is dropping on the 25th of April, and it currently has a 4.4 with just under 50 reviews. This book follows a young, queer, Palestinian American woman as she explores her family history and, in particular, her great aunt's secrets. This book confronts sexual identity, lineage, and exile, and it is a debut novel. We know that Book of the Month loves a good debut, and this sounds like a really interesting one. I love the exploration of family, of identity, of lineage. All of these things, I think, make for a really interesting pick. And our final category, we have a couple selections for memoir this month as well, because there were some really good memoirs coming out in April. The first of which is Living Remedy by Nicole Chung. It comes out on the 4th of April. It currently has a 4.60 by about 60 reviews. This memoir is primarily about class, grief, and inequality, and it follows the daughter as she learns about her adoptive parents, about her own life and her choices, who she is as an adult, and the lives that she's lost. This sounds like it's going to be really a beautiful exploration. I actually really love memoirs that dig into familial roots. In this case, it's a little extra interesting because we have the adoptive family and a biological family. This book sounds really amazing to me. I love a memoir that delves into family history. I think that this is also going to explore a lot of Nicole's own choices and how she's ended up where she is in life. I think this book is going to be a really emotional read, and Book of the Month seems to really like to feature very emotional memoirs. Then we have Brown Boy, which is by Amer Aziz, and it also drops on the 4th of April. This has a 4.5 rating and only 14 reviews, so not really a lot of hype for it yet, but it sounds so good. This follows Omer as a child and then into adulthood, and it's basically about him growing up in Toronto and then eventually attending very prestigious universities around the world. I know that he attends Cambridge, and I forget what the other two were, but they're each in different countries. And it kind of deals with his place in society. This deals with his feelings of isolation as a Pakistani Muslim, existing in a mostly white environment. And this also conflicts with his desire to fit in a Western world that never really quite accepts him. I think this is going to talk a lot about class, race, wealth, and religion, possibly. Education, things like that, all really relevant topics. And the reviews that I've seen of this book were like excellent. All of them talked about how well he speaks about these topics and like how emotional it is delving into his own life and his experiences. Also sounds like something that would fit right in with Book of the Month and some of the memoirs they've picked in the past, and I would love to see it. So those are all of my selections for Book of the Month predictions. I hope that you found them interesting. If you did, hit the thumbs up button and comment down below. Let me know, is there a particular book you're hoping will be in the Book of the Month box? It doesn't have to be off of my list. It can be any book that's publishing next month. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button down below, as well as the notification bell so that you never miss a video. That way we can see each other again soon. Thank you so much for joining. Talk to you soon. Bye.